We are going to finish up the subject of Abraham today. I wanted to say a couple of things though before we get started, because some of the things we've talked about this week are a little hard to understand. And the reason that they are hard to understand is because we have this idea about God that's been given to us down through the centuries, this idea of a Zeus-like God instead of God who operates in truth and justice, and he doesn't do things that are unjust, that he operates in this area of love. And he doesn't do things arbitrarily. He doesn't do things just because he decides to. He follows his own rules. And that's why it makes it a little bit difficult to understand why God does things a certain way. But if you go into those stories and you tear them apart and you start looking at them, you see that there is a very, very good reason why things happen the way that they did. So, having said that, let's turn to Galatians chapter 3. We're going to move into the New Testament today. Galatians chapter 3, verse 6. And Paul is saying, even as Abraham believed God, and it was accounted to him for righteousness, know you therefore that they which are of faith, the same are the children of Abraham. And the scripture, foreseeing that God would justify the heathen through faith, preached before the gospel to Abraham, saying, in you will all the nations be blessed. So you heard me say, when we were first talking about Genesis 12 and Genesis 15, where God says all the nations of the earth are going to be blessed, Paul is pointing out here that is exactly what's going on, and that is exactly why Abraham was what we call the father of faith, because he was the first one who said, I will trust God, and God will take care of me. He will be my God. I will be his people. This is what Paul's explaining to us here in the book of Galatians. And then if you skip down to verse 13, this is what Paul says. Christ has redeemed us from the curse of the law, being made a curse for us. What is the curse of the law? Basically, the curse of the law is if you mess up, everything in the world bad that could possibly happen, that's what happens. If you break the law, you get the curse. And the curse is every possible bad thing you can think of. And it's laid out, I believe it's Deuteronomy 18, where he talks about if you don't obey the law, this is what happens. And it just goes through, like I said, every bad thing you can think of. It is written, cursed is every one that hangs on a tree, that the blessing of Abraham might come on the Gentiles through Jesus Christ, that we could receive the promise of the Spirit through faith. You go ahead and read through the rest of these verses, read to the end of the chapter. Paul explains that the law is important. The law gives us the example or the model of what righteousness and truth is supposed to look like. We need the law to tell us what is right and what is true. We can't just make up our own rules and decide this is right and that's not. It has to be according to God's truth, because God is truth. And so the law explains that in crushing detail. If you've ever tried to read through the book of Deuteronomy or the book of Leviticus, what you see there is the law. From what I've been told, there are 613 commandments that have to be kept. And we've talked about this before. Those 613 laws have to be kept perfectly and in the right heart and mind behind it, the right motive behind it. That's what Jesus said. He said, just keeping the law that says don't have fornication with a woman, he says if you just lust after her, you've already committed that sin. So what Jesus is saying is the law, it's bad enough by itself. 613 commandments, and you have to keep them perfectly. But not only that, but you have to keep them in your heart too. It's not enough to just not do it on the outside. You can't do it on the inside either. And so what God shows us is that's what perfection looks like. The tragedy of that, of course, is that none of us can keep the law perfectly. We can't do it. It's not possible. The beauty of it, though, is that God knows that. And so he made this way of a substitute being able to come and do that for us. And the way that happens is, Paul says, is through faith. And what we understand about faith is what we learned a little while back, that faith is trusting God, resting in God, and allowing Him to lead and guide us. And because He loves us, because, like it says in 1 Peter 5, 6, and 7, we humble ourselves under the mighty hand of God, casting our care on Him because He cares for us. And so because of that, we can put our faith in Him, rest in that, and allow God to work out His will in our life, which will be to our good. And this, once again, just to finish this up, this is what I was talking about at the beginning, which was we have this Zeus idea of God, that God's handing out torture to some people and good things to other people, and He's picking some and not picking others. All of that is pagan. All of that is not the God of the Bible. The God of the Bible has rules and regulations that are ironclad. You cannot break not even one tiny bit of the law. But you can receive mercy, and you can receive forgiveness, and you can receive Jesus as your substitute. And then you come into this relationship with God, which that's what the whole thing is all about. It's all about the love of God and Him wanting a relationship with us. Everything else is just to show us when we're starting to get off the track or on the track. It's like I talked to you when we talked about the fruits of the Spirit. You can know that you're on the right track if you've got love, joy, peace, long-suffering. You understand what I mean there? And it's the same with the commandments. The commandments tell us this is what goodness looks like. If it doesn't look like that, then it's not goodness. It's not God. But as I have already said, and as you know, keeping the law is not something that we're capable of. Obviously, we don't go break the law. And this, Paul says that here in these verses. He says we're not breaking the law just because we can. We are attempting to do our best, but we understand that our best is never going to be good enough, and so we are resting in our relationship with our Daddy God, our Daddy who loves us. And when we fall down, He doesn't say, well, just lie there, you rotten piece of garbage. He says, here, let me help you up and let me show you how to walk. That's what it's all about. It's all about a relationship with God. And Abraham was our example to show us how it's done. And how it's done is put your faith in God, trust Him, and follow His direction, and you're golden. All right, so I'll talk to you next week. We'll come back and talk about the next chapter in the Warriors of Light study guide. All right, bye-bye.